This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jespersen.
Happy to welcome you to a special 4th of July edition of the show. That's right, our mission today is to repair the Canada-U.S. relationship, and we're grateful to have you here with us as we do that. Now, you know that the intrepid technical producer of this show is a Florida native, so Johnny Infamous will be bringing his American-Canadian dual citizen takes to this, and in just a second, we're going to introduce you to a very special guest, someone who I've been looking forward to debuting on this show for quite some time, checking in live from Southern California. Now, it's a different feel this 4th of July, and a shout out to those of you that are also celebrating the kickoff to the Calgary Stampede today, the greatest outdoor show on earth. There's a lot of stuff happening, and I guarantee that at those pancake breakfasts and at those big corporate Stampede parties, a lot of people are going to be talking about business. And when you're talking about business and the economy these days, you can't help but talk about the Canada-U.S. relationship. It's changed dramatically since November when Donald Trump was reelected, his second term as president of the United States, and of course his tariffs and his shakeups with NATO, with international relationships, the American relationship with China, the American involvement in strikes in the Middle East, Iran, namely, Israel, of course, many storylines that are impacting the way that folks are doing business, earning their livings, and of course monitoring their corporate bottom lines. But on a personal level as well, where are you at today? On the 4th of July, typically Canadians, 3 days removed from our July 1st Canada Day celebrations, have offered tips of the cap to our American neighbors. We've offered our congratulations. If you're like me, the morning of the 4th of July, you text your friends that live stateside. In many cases, the people you've known for years and years and years. You let them know that we're celebrating with them, that we appreciate them. Has that changed? Now, I know for a lot of you, you look at this big picture and you say, yeah, something's got to give here. This isn't good. This isn't sustainable. The direction that this relationship, the Canada-U.S. partnership, that neighborly relationship that has benefited both nations for decades and decades and decades, we know it's got to change, and we know that it will. But have you tried to preserve, have you tried to insulate the relationships you have with your American friends and family members? I'm curious to hear what you have to say on this. We'll be keeping an eye on our live chat powered by Park Power. Of course, our email's to talk@ryanjespersen.com. And there is some U.S. content coming up as we wrap the episode today in the Flamethrower, presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. Why don't we set the tone? The President of the United States in the Oval Office, this about a week ago, talking about Canada. And this was, of course, as Canada was taking a look at that digital services tax, that DST, that was looking to get the world's biggest tech companies, the big social media platforms, to pay for Canadian news content. I'm oversimplifying it, but bear with me. Trump was saying, well, that's got to go. Carney lifts it. He's been criticized for it over the past week or so, depending on which sources you're listening to. I know some folks think it's a good thing, but all of this in an effort to get Americans back to the negotiating table in a meaningful way and to get all of this behind us. But no one could blame you for feeling a bit pessimistic after hearing Donald Trump say this.
Specifically, why are you deciding to end trade talks with Canada, and what rate are you looking to set?
So Canada put a charge on some of our companies, and Canada's been a very difficult country to deal with over the years. We hear Canada, we have a great relationship with the people of Canada, but it's been very difficult, and they put a charge, and they were a little bit early, we found out about it. So, and we have all the cards, we have every single one. We don't want to do anything bad, but they have, economically, we have such power over Canada. I'd rather not use it, but they did something with our tech companies today trying to copy Europe. They copied Europe. It's not going to work out well for Europe either, and it's not going to work out well for Canada. They were foolish to do it. So I said we're going to stop all negotiations with Canada right now until they straighten out their act. Okay?
Is there anything Canada can do to change your mind about this situation?
Well, no, they put a tax on companies that were American companies that they shouldn't, very severe tax. And, yeah, I guess they could remove it. They will, but I don't really, it doesn't matter to me. We have all the cards. We do a lot of business with Canada, but relatively little. They do most of their businesses with us. And when you have that circumstance, you treat people better. They've had fun.
Okay, so it goes on from there. Doesn't sound great, right? In our live chat, Emily's already saying, I don't think that the onus is on Canada on this one. Alberta Girl says, we can't talk business with a nation that's unwilling to be a stable trading partner. So this is the vibe on this 4th of July. As we welcome in live from just outside Los Angeles, California, Philip Jespersen. He's the founder of PKJ Entertainment Marketing. He's got more than 20 years experience integrating high-profile brands into top-tier media content across TV, digital media, social media, radio, and podcasts. Based out of Los Angeles, he specializes in national and international brand integrations into TV shows, including in-house marketing for ABC's Live with Kelly and Mark, where Philip handles all day-to-day partnerships and giveaways, including their daily travel trivia segment, which not too long ago featured beautiful Jasper, Alberta. Philip making his Real Talk debut. It's so nice to see you, cousin. Happy 4th of July.
So excited to be here, Ryan. Thanks for having me here on 4th of July, one of my favorite U.S. holidays of the year, and the fact that I'm up at the crack of dawn and kicking it off with you. I know it's going to be a great day.
Yeah,
so
well,
thanks for having me.
We appreciate that you agreed to start your 4th of July with us. On a personal level, what does the 4th look like for you? Obviously, I'm assuming you're getting the family together. You got friends everywhere. The stars and stripes will be waving. You'll be smelling barbecue. Is that kind of the vibe?
Exactly. Yeah, we'll be heading to a local club. There's going to be a great barbecue. Again, one of the reasons it's my favorite holidays, it's just family time, getting outside, eating good food. We'll finish the evening with some fireworks. It's a Friday night, so then we have the rest of the weekend. Hopefully we'll get down to the beach, and just an awesome time of the year. So looking forward to, the day.
Okay, so your dad, Keith, is my dad's older brother, 18, 19 years of age. Keith pursues a career opportunity. He moves from Calgary down to L.A. That's where you were born and raised in beautiful Altadena, California. So you've grown up American. You only know being American, but you've spent a ton of time in Canada. You got a bunch of Canadian relatives. How have you been wrapping your mind around November on and the relationship between these two countries?
Yeah, it's hard to get into the mind of Donald Trump. I don't think anyone here in the States, it was ever on the radar to suggest, that Canada become a 51st state. That kind of came out of left field, and I had to, look it up myself to see was this really said. I don't know if it's a tactic that he's using for future negotiations. I don't know if it's just to rile up people, which he tends to love to do. I think he's kind of the ultimate troll in certain circumstances. Maybe there's an end game to that. But we'll see. I obviously don't love the idea of hostilities. I have a deep connection to Canada, as you mentioned. We love our northerly neighbor. So I don't know exactly what's going on. Hopefully we can get this worked out. But, Donald Trump, he likes to shake the tree. And he's certainly done that here. I think, my perception of maybe that's done for the Canadian people, it's rallied you guys. You can maybe tell me, did Canada Day feel a little bit different this year?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the point that you're making and the question you're asking is intuitive, because it absolutely felt different this year. I think that a lot of things have felt different this year. That Four Nations face-off, that kind of like, mid-season hockey tournament that the NHL put on, where Canada and the U.S. squared off, and like as the puck drops, opening face-off. You never see scraps in international hockey. You never see scraps, but we saw like 3 in the first minute, and everybody just felt like it was higher stakes. And in Canada, And we're going to talk. I want to talk about your politics in just a little bit, because I guarantee some people are going to hear this and they're going to go, "Oh, Jespo brings on his California cousin, who's obviously a Democrat, who's obviously going to take a big steaming shit on Donald Trump." But that's not the way that you're wired. Actually, you and I politically, I think we kind of land in the same spot. But definitely, while Canada does have political differences regionally and otherwise, there's something that's happened as people have kind of rallied under the Canadian flag. It hasn't been total peace on the political landscape. Obviously, people still thrust and parry that, conservatives still can't stand the fact that the Liberals won another election, and the Liberals can't stand the fact that Pierre Poilievre continues to chirp on behalf of the Conservatives while he doesn't have a seat in the House of Commons. That's still happening. But at the same time, I think as people belt out "O Canada" during the Stanley Cup final, or as people wave their flags on July 1st, it seemed to have a little bit more meaning. I don't know if that's resonating with, as you're doing business. Read your CV. You work with a ton of TV programs. You've made a hell of a career for yourself. You work with Good Morning America and The View and Wheel of Fortune, Entertainment Tonight, Access Hollywood, all the big networks. Is this impacting your commerce? Is this impacting your sponsorships? Is this impacting your business or your client's business at all?
Yeah, I haven't necessarily found that this particular issue has affected that. Certainly the tariff talk, that really rattled people down here. I have a lot of friends who have, work in kind of retail businesses and have dealings with China. So, that was huge. That was a really scary time. Obviously, it affected the stock market. So when any of those things are affected, ultimately people are going to pull back a little bit on some spending when there's uncertainty. It does seem to have eased up a little bit, which is a good thing. But, we're still very much in the middle of, these trade wars, essentially. And, Canada's a part of that. And it sounds like, you're a little more up to speed on the day-to-day, but maybe talks have halted a little bit right now. So that's concerning, and that's never a good thing. And certainly with, a friendly neighbor, you don't want to be getting into spats. There's plenty of other hot button issues going on around the world, and to kind of be in a spat with, our brothers up north doesn't make sense to me. I think we need to pick other battles, and we need to get this resolved.
Yeah, Blahsheep is in our live chat, powered by Park Power, says Canadians were so quick to trample the relationship even months before the tariffs were introduced, booing the American anthem, not supporting American businesses, buying Chinese products instead. Blahsheep says you can't make that shit up. Johnny and I were actually supporting and sponsoring. I was hosting a golf tournament yesterday, the member guest out at the Glendale, and it was a Canada-A theme, and everybody on the course was wearing the red and white. We were serving wine on our hole. We made sure that we served a nice VQA Ontario Riesling and a VQA BC Rosé. Obviously, you live in a huge wine-producing state. That's been one of the big ones where, I don't know, economically, if it's hurt Americans as much as Canadians might like. I'm sure that there's other export markets. I know there's a big global market for California wines, for Oregon wines and the like, but you're seeing fewer American bourbons on the shelves. I've heard in significant numbers. Let's also recognize you live in one of the biggest tourism economies on planet Earth, in Southern California. We have seen, I know, a big drop in the number of Canadians that are traveling down to the U.S. I've heard that it's 500,000 fewer every month. Your governor, Gavin Newsom, has appealed to Canadians and invited them to come down to the U.S. So I know that it's been prominent and it's kind of factored into people's everyday lives. But as it is in Canada, we often wonder how much the average American is actually paying attention to it. In so many ways, Philip, is the dynamic in Canada. You've got a ton of family in Alberta. You've got family in Ontario. Us in Alberta wonder if people in Ontario are ever paying attention to our political stories too. So it always seems loudest in your own ecosystem, right? But does the average Californian pay attention to what Canadians are doing to try to clap back on American tariffs, do you think?
Well, I think it depends. Like you said, I did see that there were some boycotts happening in Canada, and I think that probably really affects these small, you said bourbon, and for some reason I recall reading an article, small batch, small distilleries. I think it's really affecting them. As far as tourism, yeah, of course. Canada is obviously a huge draw, being so close, so I'm sure it's having an effect. You mentioned like Gavin Newsom, the entry, and I'll just say this to your Canadian listeners. I mean, Gavin Newsom, and maybe we'll get into this later, but, and Donald Trump are very much at odds. So I do know he was encouraging our neighbors up to the north to come on down, and he's not in line with the things that Donald Trump is doing. So, I know he's doing his best to make sure that our economy, who is also, Californians are kind of battling with the federal government, which is very unfortunate. And given the fact that I think, Gavin Newsom will be making a run for the presidency, I think the next 3 years are going to be tough for Californians as well. So we're not facing the same kind of rhetoric and threats from Donald Trump that you guys are, but we are at odds in some cases with the federal government here as well. So
pretty interesting story at the University of California, Cal Irvine. A survey finds that in this dust-up with the incumbent, with Donald Trump and your governor, Gavin Newsom, that this clash is seeing Trump losing favor and Newsom gaining favor. What's it been like on your end? Like you're if I know you well, I don't ever want to speak for someone else's politics, but I don't know you as like a loud California Democrat, and I know that California has its fair share of Republicans as well. But I don't know if you land there either. How do you describe your politics when people ask?
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this to you before. It's like at this point in my life, I really don't consider myself a Democrat or a Republican. I know that puts me in this weird middle position, but I'm very center. Fiscally, I want to be a little more conservative. I've got 3 kids. I'm just like everyone else. I'm worried about finances. I'm worried about their future. But from a perspective of being thoughtful and careful for people who are maybe less fortunate or our immigrant community, I support the rights there, and I want everyone to be, treated and have the opportunities. So I fall very center, and I vote sometimes down a Republican line and sometimes down a Democrat line. It really depends on the issue, depends on the candidate. And I don't like to kind of put myself in a box, on the far right or a box on the left. And I really like the idea of a kind of a central mind frame and common sense. I know that the MAGA movement has kind of hijacked common sense, which is unfortunate because their common sense may be different than what other people would consider common sense. But I like to consider myself a common sense voter, and on issues fiscally and on other levels as well.
I don't know if it feels like there's much common sense in politics right now. We have kind of, our conservative audience may not appreciate me saying this, but I think that Canadians elected a common sense prime minister. Mark Carney rolled in with, as you know, a lot of executive experience, a lot of business experience, former governor of 2 international banks, Bank of Canada anyway, and over in England as well, and sort of, I think, comes across as credible and experienced. And so I think I was at least happy to see, when all things were considered and Canadians voted, happy to see somebody in that office that would approach negotiations with the United States, and I think even more importantly, communication about negotiations with the United States responsibly. Like that's what I was. And I think the last thing that you need, and everybody was always curious too. Pierre Poilievre, leader of Canada's Conservatives, is a sharp debater. He's got a sharp tongue. He's quick-witted. He's got all the one-liners. He's got all the slogans. I think some people, myself included, were a little nervous about how that might play out when you've got 2 of those. I'm certainly not comparing Pierre Poilievre to Donald Trump. Respectfully, I think that Pierre Poilievre would probably wither across the table from Donald Trump. And so I think that a lot of people, their politics in Canada, you look at our most recent federal election, Philip, and issues like climate change and the environment, to a certain degree, affordability. People weren't even talking about them. Like the number 1 election issue by a mile was Canada's relationship with the United States. But like you said, it's like, when you describe Trump as a disruptor, it's almost not adequate enough language, because there's really nobody else that does politics like him, and no international relationship is safe. For that matter, no one on home soil is safe. Like he was talking about arresting Gavin Newsom, talking about throwing him in jail. I mean, like it's just been a little wild. That's got to change your understanding, I think, of politics at least a little bit. You describe yourself kind of the same as I do, trying to find that sweet spot, trying to vote based on common sense, trying to form your opinions or your personal policy on how it impacts people around you. But when you've got a president like you guys do right now, for a lot of people, you vote a little bit differently, you talk about politics, or maybe don't talk about politics a little bit differently. Has that been playing out for you?
Yeah, I mean, it has. Again, there's new things popping up every day. I mean, just, in California, I mean, he sent out, the National Guard recently against Gavin Newsom's wishes. So he's not conforming to, standard protocols. And those things are alarming. I think, in that case, this was the first time that had happened for 60 or 70 years, and he kind of used some obscure law to be able to implement essentially some form of a martial law against the governor's wishes. So there's a lot of that happening, and he really is disregarding kind of some of the standard processes and makes decisions on the fly and doesn't necessarily care about some of the consequences. And some things work, and so I don't want to be all negative on him. To your point, I'm not a Trump hater. When I give him credit when there's credit due, and some of the things that don't sit well, then I'll be somewhat vocal about that as well. My group of friends, we're divided across the board as well on politics, so I feel pretty free to express my opinions, which we should all feel those freedoms. So
we welcome that on this show, and we're grateful to have you here. In our live chat powered by Park Power, check out parkpower.ca/real talk for exclusive savings on internet, electricity, and natural gas. Dubious is wondering, what do you guys think ICE is going to do with its new $175 billion budget? Says it's now one of the biggest militaries in the world aimed at its own citizens. What do you figure that was prep for? Matthew says, I'm worried about what will happen with Trump's new bill. Trump describes it as his big, beautiful bill. This mega bill coming into law says ICE now has a budget larger than most militaries in the world, including Canada, and it's like 3 times the size of the U.S. Marines. I'm not sure if you saw this. CNN reporting Mexican boxer Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. detained by ICE and on track to be deported just days after fighting Jake Paul. Now, that's obviously a high-profile circumstance, but we've seen toddlers arrested. We've seen people pulled out of workplaces, people pulled away from their families. A lot of that's happening in your home state of California. How are you wrapping your mind around it, and what's the word on the street?
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge issue here. I mean, in Los Angeles, the biggest Hispanic community in the United States, massive issue. And my hometown of Pasadena, it is happening, Ryan, literally left and right. I'm talking ICE agents hiding and popping out at people and arresting people, chasing people on the street. And it is a really frightening situation for like the immigrant community. People into, which is the backbone of our working force here. So people are scared. People aren't showing up to work. People aren't showing up to the restaurants. I think even in our farm industry, I heard, there are strawberries rotting out in the middle of the fields because there's no one out there to pick them. We don't have the workers. So I understand, the need for law and to have legal citizenship, but this process with ICE is, it's horrible. And these agents are, from my perspective, what I've seen, they're kind of these bounty hunters. I've heard they get paid per immigrant that they detain. So it's like they're out there hunting. These guys are masked. They have different uniforms on. They're riding around in rental cars. So it's a really wild time and seemingly indiscriminate. They're just popping into wherever they feel. So it's very unnerving, and it's having a huge effect in Los Angeles, and in my hometown of Pasadena, and I hate to see it. It's not the right path for whatever they're looking to accomplish.
Yeah. By the way, we have an email. We do the Flamethrower every Friday, courtesy of our friends at DQ, where everybody can sound off. They bring us their hot takes. Got a little rock and roll music behind us as we read it. And I had a message here from Gordon for the Flamethrower, but I think I'll read it right now instead for you and me. We had a couple of politicians on. They're reviving the Alberta political party that you'd be familiar with. It's the one that our grandparents always used to vote for, the Progressive Conservatives, but they've been gone for years, and now they're coming back. And these guys are talking about being fiscally conservative. They never use the word liberal, but they'll say socially progressive, right? And Gordon heard that talk on our July 2nd episode, and he reached out. He said, when asked about their political point of view, the common response in Alberta and beyond, most people will say they're fiscally conservative and socially liberal or socially progressive. He says they sit on the fence. Gordon says that's a bullshit position. He says, sure, being socially liberal or progressive is a good thing, but if you want to support socially progressive causes, that costs money, and there goes your fiscal conservatism. Gordon says the other thing is the on the fence angle on this. Being fiscally conservative, socially liberal ostensibly means you're living in the middle, on the fence. The big question I have is why so many people on the fence come down on the conservative side instead of the liberal one. He says it happens all the time. And it suggests that socially liberal programs are not really what you support. He says it's just a way to deflect criticism for being a conservative ne'er-do-well. I think that's the first time we've used that word on the show. Gordon says what I have to say is, please? Yeah, the ne'er-do-well. That feels like 1920s, right? 1920s. Some guy walking out of the saloon. You're going, there's a ne'er-do-well. But Gordon closes by saying, all you socially liberal, fiscally conservative people should grow some balls and walk the walk rather than pussying out with a bullshit point of view that doesn't do anyone any good. That from Gordon, who doesn't buy what you're trying to sell. What would you say back to him?
Hey, everyone's entitled to their own wrong opinion, right? So, I get it. And sometimes I do feel like a bit of a fair weather fan on some things where I'm kind of in the middle. I'm not and I've told you this, I'm not overly political, and maybe that's part of the problem. But hey, to each their own. I kind of love what that guy said. So if that tells you anything about my politics, it's like, hey, maybe he's half right. But that's still my stance. But yeah. Yes, hey, but by the way, for the record, I do come down on the full left liberals equally as hard as I come down on the full right.
I've heard you do it. I've heard you do it.
I equally despise some of the stances on those far spectrums.
I thought it was pretty interesting. Fox and Friends just this morning calling the state of California unpatriotic. I'm not sure if this is factoring into your plans today or if you were paying attention to this story, but California canceling 4th of July events after the ICE raids. Where do you think, I think a lot of people are getting the sense, we've been talking about it here on the show with a largely Canadian audience, although 1 in 5 of our YouTube views are from the United States, which I also think is kind of interesting. But you do feel, and you alluded to this, like there is a showdown that's already happening. Gavin Newsom is not obviously a candidate for president yet, but it sort of feels like he's posturing that way. It does kind of feel like California versus Washington, D.C. right now, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's definitely, they're at odds. Donald Trump despises Gavin Newsom, and I think the feeling is mutual there. Donald Trump despises our Los Angeles mayor, Karen Bass. That's a mutual feeling. Obviously, we are a very, left state. So yeah, they're battling. Fox News, I'll take what they say with a grain of salt. Obviously, there's, a bit of an agenda there, as there is on some of the liberal news as well. But I don't think cancellations of certain celebrations have to do with being unpatriotic. It literally has to do with people are really scared right now, legitimately scared to show up to events where ICE, as I said, they're hiding out, and people don't want to risk that. I've heard people are afraid to leave their homes, and some not even illegal immigrants, maybe family members, they just don't know where things are falling. So their spin on it obviously is unpatriotic, but the reality is that it's fear. There's a lot of fear happening in California in particular. He may be heaving up on ICE in our state, and in Los Angeles area. So that's what I think what's going on there.
Well, it's interesting, and obviously California carries a lot of political power. California is one of the biggest economies in the world, so I mean, I think obviously that's a story that a lot of people are paying close attention to. Hang tight. You've invoked Pasadena several times, talking about this community I know that you love so dearly. Obviously, when you mention Pasadena internationally, people are going to think of that fire, and that impacted your family in a very real way. I want to get into that with you, talk about the aftermath, talk about the recovery. You know that the Fairmont Jasper Park Lodge just reopened its golf course on the 1st of July to celebrate their 100th season. We're getting photos from real talkers that have been out there playing golf, picking up burned out golf balls, seeing vistas they've never seen before because tens of thousands of trees have been cleared, but they're talking about all the wildflowers that are popping up. They're seeing that regeneration. Now, I know for a lot of people, big interruptions in their life, including your parents, and I want to go talk to you about that in just a second. We're talking to Philip Jespersen, my beloved cousin, and of course, the founder of PKJ Entertainment Marketing. This conversation is happening with the support of our friends, appropriately, at California Closets of Canada. You can find them online at californiaclosets.ca. These guys are the absolute best in the business, custom closets and storage solutions for your entire home. So whether it's getting that laundry room organized, whether it's that entertainment center that the family can gather around, it's going to look great, increase the value of your home, or maybe you want to redo your garage this summer. California Closet does it all. They manufacture all their installations right here in Alberta, and everything they install is guaranteed for life. That consultation is free with their team of designers, and you can book it today at californiaclosets.ca. Friesen Brothers has you covered this weekend. If you're hosting, maybe it's a late Canada Day celebration, maybe you're observing the 4th of July today, or maybe you're just taking in this beautiful summer weather. Nobody does barbecue prep like Friesen Brothers. Their real butchers have you covered. All the Alberta-based proteins, chicken, pork, beef, even bison, they can cut to order. And of course, make sure you visit their in-store bakery. I recommend the sourdough cinnamon buns. Friesen Brothers in 16 different communities, family-owned, Alberta-grown, and Alberta-owned. That's Friesen Brothers at friesen.com. If you are barbecuing, you're outside, you're taking a look at that grill that has served you so well year after year after year, and you've reached the point where you must acknowledge it's time to invest in a new one. You Need a Barbecue is a family-owned Sherwood Park business that understands the nuance of a big barbecue purchase, right? Are you making big racks of ribs, or do you prefer to rotisserie those chickens? Do you like to smoke your meats? Does a Forno oven, a pizza oven maybe work for you? Russell Bryan and the team there can give you all the advice you need and set you up with their white glove concierge service. Make sure you check out their Unitas seasoning. They've got a new bottle out in partnership with K-Days. You pick up a bottle of Unitas seasoning at Unita Barbecue, you'll get 2 free tickets to K-Days. You won't find a better deal than that. You'll find it at unitabarbecue.com. And I see that our friends at the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce are representing the Metro Edmonton capital region down at the Calgary Stampede as they kick off the festivities today. They're never stopping that advocacy, getting in the rooms with the decision makers, the power players, and looking out for independent, small and medium-sized businesses. You can learn more about their advocacy by following them on Instagram at Edmonton Chamber, and check out their website, edmontonchamber.com, where you can learn more about the benefits of membership with the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. Philip, when I talk about the Chamber of Commerce, does it make you think about Grandpa Stan? I'll let the audience know our grandpa, Stan Jespersen, worked so proudly at the Calgary Chamber of Commerce for decades, and I know that he was always wearing, waving that flag and carrying that banner with pride.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That name sounds super familiar and brings back some great memories of Grandpa Stan.
Yeah, it sure does. Rest in peace. That Pasadena fire, the Eaton fire, they call it, obviously, devastating, and I think the world watched in horror as, I think certainly one of North America's most populated communities. You look at that Los Angeles area, Pasadena, Altadena, and surrounding areas, the number of homes there, the number of people, and the strength, the fury of that fire. It's one that impacted you personally. Your parents' home, the home that you grew up in, 1809 East Loma Alta Drive. You and I were like pen pals growing up. You'd always send me Hard Rock Cafe stuff, and I'd lose my mind. But I remember writing out that address on envelopes for years and years and years. And unfortunately, that was one of the homes that was in the fire's path. Are you still kind of wrapping your mind around what happened? I know that folks, including your parents, still see day-to-day interruptions in what was their normal life, but how would you describe the experience and the aftermath?
Yeah, I mean, Ryan, wow. I mean, I hope at some point you can make it up here just to kind of understand. This was just devastating. I mean, not just for the fact that we lost our family home of 45 years. I mean, that, obviously very tragic for our family. So many families have lost their homes. Thousands and thousands. This is the community that I grew up in, that my sisters are family. My parents moved here 50 years ago. Everything we knew. And when I say hundreds of friends and families who lost their homes, and all the local businesses, the schools, the restaurants, gone, obliterated. It's a really tragic scene up in Altadena. It has been flattened. We're working our way back. Things are being cleared, but it really is still a very sad situation. But we'll see what the future holds. People are very proud to be a part of Altadena. It's such an amazing community. So I know people are looking to build back and bring it back stronger. That's the message. But again, we spent 45 years in that house. That was really a cornerstone of our entire family, our extended family, countless summers that you and I spent there with, your siblings and our cousins, and, still going up there today. We go up there all the time. There's still work to be done up there, clearing this lot. We're dealing with, insurance things. It's only been 5 months or so, maybe 6 months. So it's very fresh. It affected this area, Altadena and Pasadena, in ways that I can't even explain. But we're strong, and we've got the Dina Strong logos going, and that Dina Strong mentality. And we're, working together. There's a little bit of comfort, for lack of a better word, in that so many other people are also going through it with us, who have lost everything. So, we're moving on, and we're looking forward to, a better time for Altadena and Pasadena, and we'll get there.
Yeah, just a couple of weeks ago, you and your family gathered. I guess the Army Corps and FEMA had just cleared the lot, so like you didn't have access to that, as far as I know. Although I know that you and your family you'd worn some PPE, and you'd been able to go in and kind of sift through the rubble to a certain degree to see if you could salvage any of the things. I mean, we should note that your parents evacuated. Do you mind telling us about that? I remember you sending me photos. You said, you sent me a photo, and it was like through the drivers as you're backing out of your driveway. And I think it wound up being the last photo that was ever taken of that house. But the fire behind it was absolutely wild. And you and your mom, Darlene, have told us for years. I remember your mom talking to my mom and saying, like, there would be like a fire, there'd be a mudslide, or you guys had like wild stuff down there. I remember hearing about, like, you found a scorpion in the backyard, like all the things. Southern Californians are used to some wild developments, but those photos you were sending that night were different. It was obvious. I hate to say it, it was obvious what was about to happen. The fire was that close. So they leave in what, with 20, 30 minutes notice kind of thing? Weren't they out for dinner and their neighbor called and said, like, basically you got to go?
Yeah, this was, to your point, this was something different that day. It was, we're used to these Santa Ana winds that come through, and everyone who lives in, Altadena, Pasadena, and surrounding areas know that these winds kick up pretty regularly. But there had been some talk that, this was going to be something a little stronger. So, that morning, certainly, I mean, we're having gusts of 80 miles per hour. I had gone up there early in the morning. My parents are a little older. I kind of went up to the house to check on things, to, kind of batten down the hatches, if you will, and, suggested maybe they come to our place, which is, 5 miles away, 10 minutes away. They decided to stay up there, but went on with the day. And about 6 o'clock that evening, I received a text from a friend who said, "Hey, this fire has just sparked up in the mountains, and it looks like it's right above your parents' house." I grabbed my son, who's 14 years old. We hopped in my truck. We jammed up there. My parents were not home at the time. And I could tell, just even driving up there was madness, down power lines, down trees. Get up there, and Eaton Canyon, hence the Eaton Fire, which is right behind their house, was a raging inferno. Very scary, terrible conditions. We got into the house, had a friend make it up there as well, and we just kind of went into damage control mode, and we packed up every bin we could find, trash cans, trash bags. We're filling them with photos and important things, the documents. My parents ended up showing up, and we kind of combed through the house as much as we could and got the things that we felt were really the most crucial things. And I feel grateful that, we had a little bit of time to do that. I have a lot of friends who literally left with the clothes on their backs. But we got that, those few items packed up and tried to kind of hang as long as we could. This fire creeped over the ridge, and I mean, everything you can imagine: flying embers, flames, smoke, wind. We decided to take off, and within 1 hour of us leaving, their house was completely gone. So it was devastating. And I will say, from even that time where their house was completely gone, which is maybe, 8 or 9 o'clock at night, from 9 o'clock at night till 6, 7 in the morning the next day, the entire city of Altadena was lost in a very short amount of time. And it was like something you can never imagine. It was really horrific. I am obviously glad that we have the most important things, the safety of our family, and some of these, important possessions, some old great pictures of our family and the things that my mom and dad really cherish. So we're blessed in that sense. But still just a very sad situation.
Yeah. It feels weird to talk to you about your parents, like my beloved aunt and uncle, in front of thousands of people. But I will just say that we've thought a lot about them as well. I think, just it's that, and your parents are spry and active and all that kind of stuff. But, losing your family home and trying to make a decision on what you're going to do next in your mid to late 70s is like a whole other ball game as well. And we'll recognize that there's thousands of people that don't have the supports, the financial supports, the family supports that your parents have. I think of some of those elderly people and other vulnerable people that absolutely lost everything, some of them uninsured. I mean, those are the absolutely heartbreaking stories that we heard out of California, and we've heard those in other jurisdictions as well. JJ's in our live chat right now, powered by Park Power, just sharing sympathies for your family, just saying, I'm so sorry to hear about the devastating loss of that home. It's truly heartbreaking. I hope you're able to recover over time in terms of the financial and also the emotional hardships of something like this. A couple of weeks ago, you and your family held and I don't know, I'm just getting emotional. But you described it as a celebration of life. I'm the one getting emotional. You're talking about losing your family home, but this celebration of life that you guys held for 1809. And I would imagine that many families are doing this, but I'll show some photos on screen, but tell us about it.
Yeah, we wanted to get up there. You had mentioned earlier, we finally kind of got the lot cleared. It was sitting up there just devastated, burnt to the ground. And we wanted to be up there. We wanted to remember it. And we talked a lot about, we can still see the house. We can still look into the house. Even though it's not there physically, nothing will take away these years of memories. Ryan, I know you know that pool right there. We spent countless hours.
Yeah, man.
And so we wanted a chance to go up there, remember it, kind of respect it. It still weirdly seems like, when you're looking out from the driveway, it's familiar. We want to be there. We've got so much love and history there. This was just a way for us to come up. I don't want to say it was a say goodbye because, hopefully there's going to be a rebuilding process up there. I don't know if that rebuild will include my parents ever living there again, but it's still our land. It's still where we spent, all of our formative years. It's still the community we love. So it just was a part of kind of that healing process, and being able to be up there all together as an entire family and just talk about some of the great memories we had up there, and just enjoy that time together.
Well, we've been thinking about you guys a ton. It goes without saying, not just in the context of the fire, but generally speaking. Like I said, anytime we're talking about American politics and just this relationship, there is a weird dynamic, right? Like, we've got family in California. The producer of this show is from Florida. Like, we've got a ton of friends. I'm getting texts from a buddy right now in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Every 4th of July, I reach out to him. Every July 1st, he reaches out to me. These are the real life connections that Canadians, Americans share, and that we've shared for decades. And we thought that this would be just a really cool way to observe the 4th of July. I've been wanting to bring you on the show for a long time anyway. I'm grateful that you agreed to wake up at an ungodly hour in the Pacific time zone on a day off. But you have delivered. Aaron in our live chat says, Philip is such a lovely person. So I think you hit the sweet spot, pal.
Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate that. Ryan, I'm so happy to be here. Would jump up any morning to join you on this show. Maybe this will be the first of some other times. So proud of everything you're doing at Real Talk, and I love this. Like I said, this couldn't be a better way for me to kick off my July 4th celebrations. It's already been a great day, and it's about, 8:15. So it's only going up from here.
Awesome, cousin. Well, love you. Love to the family. A special hello to Keith and Dar, and of course your loved ones, our loved ones too. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Right back at your family. Love you. We'll talk soon.
Okay, sounds good. You can follow Philip on Instagram at PhillyJespo, and you can also check out his website. I'll show you here, pkjentertainment.com, integrating brands into TV, digital media, social media, podcasts, and radio. He does a ton of cool work with some of the biggest programs in the United States, some of the biggest brands, and some of the biggest networks in the world. Really cool stuff. That's pkjentertainment.com. I want to get to some of your comments, figure out where your head's at, but first I want to remind you how these conversations happen, and that is amazing partnerships with teams like Solar by Kuby. You can find them online at kuby.ca. That's kuby.ca. Canada's fastest growing renewable energy company, and they're hiring right now. If you check out Solar by Kuby, follow the link on their website. You can see that careers link there. They've asked us to remind you that they are always hiring with a fast-growing, forward-thinking team that's transforming Canada's energy landscape. They've got head offices in Edmonton and Calgary. They've got remote offices in Kamloops and Lethbridge. They've also got a team out in Kelowna, and they've got openings in all of those communities. Again, you can find it at kuby.ca, and don't forget, you can contact them on their website for a free solar quote. If you're looking to go green, there's never a better time than right now. Again, you can find it online at kuby.ca. Athabasca University celebrating their class of 2025. But here's the thing about AU. It doesn't follow that standard start in September, wrap in June sort of a thing. In fact, as Canada's open university, you pick the pace. You're dictating the schedule of your studies based on what works for you. They've got world-class accredited online degrees and courses designed so you can complete your education whenever and wherever it works for you. Your only commute is to your device. You can learn more about the AU Advantage. Find out how it works. Read up on their hundreds of programs and courses by checking out their website, athabascau.ca. And if this weekend feels like a great weekend for golf, I'm with ya. We're going to be out at the Ranch, and I'm looking forward to it. The Ranch Golf and Country Club is easily Alberta's best public golf course, and you can book your tee time today on their website, theranchgolf.com. We want to give a huge shout-out to everybody, those 152 golfers, the many, many sponsors, our presenting sponsor, National Bank Financial, and, of course, all of our incredible volunteers. I see some of you in the live chat right now. Thank you for showing up for the 4th Annual Real Talk Golf Classic at the Ranch. $61,500 raised for the Real Talk Julie Rohr Scholarship, and boy, did we have fun along the way at the Ranch. Murray, Adam, and his team there can get you all set up. If you're in charge of organizing the tournament for your group, your nonprofit, your fundraising opportunity, you could honestly set it and forget it when you partner with the Ranch. They do more tournaments than anybody else. They have it down to a science. You can find out more about tournaments at the Ranch by visiting their website, theranchgolf.com.
Golf tournaments are taking a lot out of me already this summer, Ryan.
John, are you a court low this morning? Did we ever have fun at the
I never knew
Glendale
golfing-
Ladies Member Guest yesterday?
I thought golfing was like a relaxed sport, Ryan.
No, it's not.
It seems that it's taking a lot out of me.
Well, golfing, I find, is not very relaxing when you set the tone of a DJ that brings how many thousand watts to the tee box like you did yesterday. DJ Johnny Infamous spinning the turntables at the Glendale
fun.
Ladies
It's
Member
really
Guest in support of Uncles and Aunts at Large. We had a good time.
Yeah, and I booked 3 gigs from it, 3 weddings, just by playing at a golf tournament. So thank you to the Glendale and aunts and uncles at large for putting a little money in Johnny's pocket.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time.
I'll be sure to donate some of it back.
Yeah, we'll hold you to that. We'll ask to see your donation receipts. But in all seriousness, we had a team out there from Uncles and Aunts at Large, and we just wanted to give them a shout out. We sort of try to put our money where our mouth is. We try to give back to the communities that have given so much to us that make this show possible.
Always.
We do have our charities of choice. We talk to you about UCAN Youth Services all the time. They do an amazing job. CASA Mental Health is another organization we're very proud to partner with.
But
I'll be honest,
we also just hit up
our Real
whoever,
Talk our Real Talk Pond Hockey Classic, our 5th annual, by the way, is coming up in February. We'll give you details on that, Real Talkers, when we have them set. But it has benefited a number of organizations over the years, including Kids Sport and Uncles and Aunts at Large. But I wasn't totally clear on what Uncles and Aunts at Large was. I thought that it was like a mentorship type organization,
like Big
right?
Brothers.
Like Big Brothers, Big Sisters. And they do some of that work, and that was kind of the roots of this organization, but I didn't recognize how much work they're doing in sort of like frontline, helping young people that are experiencing homelessness, new Canadians, immigrants to Canada, refugees that, they described, I heard yesterday from one of their team members at Uncles and Aunts at Large, from Becca, shout out to her, what an ambassador she is. She was telling me, she said, she goes, well, let me give you an example, something that I did today. She says there was a young kid that's trying to register for soccer, but his parents don't speak any English. They've been in Canada for like 3 weeks. The fact that they're trying to get him into soccer is fantastic, try to get some normalcy into this young boy's life, but his parents couldn't even fill out the forms because they're not yet able to speak the language. She goes, so that's something we would do. I mean, just all these different things, filling all these different needs. So we were so happy to help raise money for them yesterday. And of course, nobody does it quite like the folks out at a member guest. It was a banger.
Yeah, she explained some of that to me too, the representative there, because I was wondering, I was like, there's got to be a different, because Big Bros, Big Sis, it's more like when younger people, right? You're kind of mentoring. But with them, think of like your aunt or uncle that you like, the cool aunt or uncle, or the one that helped you a lot. They kind of help you all through life, right? And they were just... She was rifling off all the things they do, and I was like, wow, this is so much more multifaceted. I'm not insulting their name, but it's like they almost should have a different name because they do so many more things than just mentoring and being a shoulder to kind of lean on as people grow up from into adulthood. But yeah, it was great to see them out there. Of course, we had DQ just blasting blizzards at everyone with a cannon.
So fun.
It was crazy.
Yeah, they had the blizzards going. They had the dilly bar shooters, which have got to be the most popular shooters in the history of golf tournaments.
So dangerous.
We were offering, like I was telling Philip on the Real Talk hole, partnering with DQ, hole 17 at the Glendale. We obviously, you got Johnny Infamous out there, so that's a big draw. We got the photo booth, and then we wanted to pour wine for these ladies, and so we said with their Canada A theme, we better serve Canadian wine, right? I'm not going to go serve California wines. So we had a nice dry Riesling out of Ontario. We had a nice rosé out of BC, and I figured, I was trying to do the math, and I thought 36 bottles has got to be enough, right? That's got to be enough. You would think 36 bottles has got to be enough.
5 glasses a bottle times
150 golfers, it should be fine.
Yeah.
Well, like the last crew that went through, we 86'd our last bottle as the last group went through, and I'm sitting there going, 36 bottles.
Yeah.
So shout out. I think everybody had a good time.
If you go into the Friday chat on Slack right there, you can there's the gallery, and you could show some pictures from yesterday.
Oh,
but
fun.
I'll just chat while you're doing that. Yeah, and one thing we did was we got rosé, because we're like, Canada Day, like, should we get red wine or white wine? And like red wine's kind of like on the golf course, you know what I mean? So we're like white and rosé, and Ryan's like, I'm only going to get half as many rosé. But the rosé just went so fast because people like I think for me too, like as someone who doesn't drink wine, I'll always go for the rosé first, then white, then red, right? And so Ryan was just like hiding bottles of rosé under white to try and.
I was romancing the white
because originally you were offering an option, right? Would you like this or this?
Yeah.
And then he was pushing the white because he's like the rosé is going so fast.
I made a horrible mistake,
Yeah,
and I sort of knew. Real talkers, I don't know if you're like party organizers yourselves or if you try to do the math on this sort of thing, but I figured I thought white, like a nice crisp white on the golf course. That's how I like to roll. So I got 2 cases. I got 24 bottles of white and 1 case. 12 bottles of rosé, and I knew that was a mistake immediately. The first foursome comes through, and they say to us, I go, would you like the white or the rosé? And they go, rosé all day.
Yeah,
and I
that's
was like,
the line, right?
Uh-oh. And then the next group comes through, and I go, white or rosé? They go, rosé. And I went, uh-oh.
Anyways.
So next year, it'll be 36 bottles of rosé. That's what we'll do.
We're talking a lot about wine, but wine takes a lot out of me, like the histamines. For some reason, like beer and wine, like it just, my nose gets all stuffy, and I start sneezing. Like this morning I woke up, I felt like I just got over the flu or something.
So you're saying like after 9 or 10 glasses of wine, you really
not
starts
even
to
that.
take
I only had 2 yesterday, Ryan.
Yeah,
and it was
I know, you
like
were very
I was like at home this morning. I woke up. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so stuffed up. But no disrespect to Kelowna, California, everyone doing wine the best. Probably Italy is in that as well. But I just can't handle it. I'll stick to vodka. The clear liquids, they don't affect me at all. Like the vodka, the gin, the tequila. If I have a few beers or a few wines, it's just, it's especially in the summer.
Well, especially if you're mixing. A lot of people can't mix, right? You don't have like wine and then like a hard iced tea and then a beer and then like a rum and coke.
And then a blizzard and then a dilly bar shooter. And,
Philip talking about that fire, that Eaton fire.
Oh, man.
Tony in our live chat says, look how long it's taking Jasper to rebuild. She says, I can't imagine how those areas in California are going to do it. Tony says it's going to take years.
I feel like California.
She wonders how her family's coping right now. She says it breaks my heart. We got a note from Karen, one of our real talkers. I don't think she'll mind me mentioning that she works in real estate. So she's obviously got kind of like an interesting perspective on how communities are rebuilding, what's happening with properties in Jasper. She's also a property owner in Jasper. And I wanted to read this. I've had this kind of locked and loaded for like a week. She reached out and she said, is Real Talk going to be investigating at all the rebuild process after the Jasper fire? She says, I lost a house there. She said it was a rental property. She says it was my investment property. It's a long story, but Parks Canada, she says, and Ottawa is making things impossible with all their stringent testing. And she says, and I feel like somebody's got to push back. It seems like they're not listening to us at all. She says, for example, the air quality tests that they're doing are probably found on any other house. The soil testing, she says it's lasting months and months. Nobody's going to be able to break ground on projects this September because of Parks Canada. She says, I had a newer home that didn't have asbestos in it. There were no concerns along those lines. Nothing wrong. Everything we were thinking we could rebuild, but now they're saying they've discovered dioxins, she says, which could be found anywhere in the air. She says it's ridiculous. So now we've got to backfill. We've got to remove all this soil. It's adding a ton of cost. It's adding a ton of time. It's putting a huge strain on people that are having to do all this backfilling on their properties. And most importantly, she says the companies that are getting all these contracts are making a ton of dough based on this rejection process. It just feels like they're bringing this all the way to the bank, and it feels like corruption. And she says, I know that somebody is getting paid here, and it's hurting property owners looking to rebuild in Jasper. That from Karen. That's a firsthand report. That's just an email to talk@ryanjespersen.com. You can tell us your story anytime. We get a better understanding of how things are playing out when we hear those real world reports. And so I want to thank Karen for that one.
It's so sad. And I was just saying before that, I feel like California's rebuilding a part of itself every year. They have wildfires. They have them in the fall. They have them in the spring. They have them in the winter. It's absolutely insane. So we're thinking about everyone down there. And we feel this. We just had this in Jasper. We have fires here or close to us in BC every year. We know exactly what it's like. It's not just, of course it's people losing their homes and all those things, but like, even when you're not there in Edmonton, like we see the skies, we feel like we're a part of it. We're breathing the same air. We're inhaling the smoke. So it's just, it just sucks. And not just the histamines making me feel like I had a cold today, but I was like, it's the 4th of July. I got to go to work today. I know it's going to be like, and that's the thing. You were just talking about this, like Canada Day, the 4th of July. It's always like the same week that both of us celebrate, us neighbors. And it just hasn't felt that way the last 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, here in Canada, since the residential school stuff, and then now in America with just everything going on, and now us facing each other this year. I know you were saying, you know, some people feel emboldened, like they're more proud to be Canadian, they're more proud to be American. But for me, I just see less celebrating in general. Less celebrating in general is happening, and that's sad, because when I was younger, I felt like it was one of the best days of the year, right in the middle of summer. Like it was a time to be with family, it was a time to go out, it was a time to, you know, watch fireworks and barbecue and do all these things. And now year after year, it seems like it's kind of like, let's just get this day over with, which is sad, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, kind of an interesting vibe this year. I also wanted to shout out Wendy Hall, a good friend of the show. She's a counselor in Jasper. She was at the Real Talk Golf Classic. She was out on opening day. I think she got back-to-back rounds, and it looked like she played on the July 1st and 2nd tee times. But check this ball out, this photo that she shared with us. This is, she said isn't this wild? She said there's thousands, for the benefit of those of you listening on the podcast, this is a branded, it looks like a Pro V1, a nice golf ball with the Jasper Park Lodge Golf Club logo on it, that logo that has been iconic for 100 years. But look at that ball.
She play with that, or just carry it?
No, she didn't play with it. That's a tailor-made ball, actually. I can check myself there. But you can see it's all scorched.
Yeah.
And she said there's thousands of those out there.
Wow.
You know, they've lost obviously some of the, like a lot of the trees, like thousands of trees were cleared from that course. And that has revealed like all these golf balls that are burned out. I think in a way, and I don't mean any disrespect at all. You guys know how I feel about Jasper. Absolutely adore that community. But it's almost, I think, for a lot of people are going to be grabbing those mementos, those reminders. That ball. I mean, look at it. Like that tells a story, doesn't it? Sure. That is such a powerful image right there. That burned out ball. I thank Wendy for sending us that photo. I've also heard, and this is, you know, if you don't look at typically at natural disasters and then try to suss out the silver linings, or at least you don't do that while the ground is still smoldering, right? People have lost their homes, people have lost their businesses. We recognize that, but I will say there's been an interesting storyline, chat in the golf community in particular, that when this course was designed, the Jasper Park Lodge Golf Course opened in 1925. Stanley Thompson, who's one of the world's great course architects, designed this course, the Jasper course, and they say that he intended the course to have certain sight lines, and over those 100 years, you know, as the forest grows and the trees fill in, much of Stanley Thompson's vision, or at least the original vision for that course, had been overtaken by brush, by trees, and a lot of people within the golf community right now are talking about how the golf experience at the JPL this year is going to be a lot different for people that are familiar with the course, and you're going to see the course in a whole different way. Like, yeah, there's some burned out landscape. Yes, it's going to be shocking if you've not seen it before. I think in a way, it's a very beautiful landscape. You know, Wendy was telling us in her message to us, she says there's wildflowers popping up everywhere. She says you can see the new life coming up. Obviously amid, I mean, it's almost, you know, it's like a metaphor. It's like a metaphor in real life, man. But a really beautiful scape. But the golf experience out there is going to be very different for people that have maybe played that course several times this year, because of a lot of those sight lines and a lot of those tree lines opening up.
Yeah,
so
that's cool.
Yeah, very cool stuff.
So yeah, I came to work today. What do you want to talk about? You want to talk about deportation versus legalization? You want to talk about tax rates, whether they're better in the States or here? You want to talk about Americans and Canadians, who's better at hockey? Let's really get emboldened and fight each other.
No, I don't think that you and I can fight each other, because I think that we're on the same page with this. Yeah. And we didn't invite Philip on this show by accident. Like, I know, you know, he's always been like how he came across today on the show. That's how he is in real life. He's like a real steady guy. He's an open mind. He's an empathetic guy. You know, he can have strong opinions like anybody else, but he's not coming in here banging on the table. I will let everybody know a peek behind the curtain. We were working on another idea, and I won't rule it out, because just like you, I'm sure, I've got friends around the United States. I've got a friend who's a huge Trump supporter in Virginia. I've got a friend who is a huge and loud Democrat that lives in Washington State, and I was thinking, wouldn't that be fun to bring on people that I know, but they don't know each other, and bring them on and have kind of a round table roundtable there. I think it might have got a little fiery with our Virginia guest today, but that's something, Real Talkers, that we have on the back burner, just so you know.
You know, if you ever need it, I've got family in Louisiana,
That'd
Kentucky,
be cool.
and definitely not MAGAs, but definitely Trump supporters. So we could line up a whole round.
Is there a
table.
difference between MAGAs and Trump
Yeah,
supporters?
I think especially because, you know, I talk to my family, and some of them are right-leaning, some of them are left, but the ones that are right-leaning, and some of them are a little, like MAGA's a little more, right? Some people just, and I think the quieter ones who maybe not, you know, wearing the hats out there, but still voted for Trump. I think MAGA's a whole other thing where, you know, you just turn a blind eye to everything. You have to be critical of the leader of a country, no matter who they are, left or right. And I feel like MAGA just kind of puts the blinders on, or literally like the red sunglasses. You know what I mean?
How about that gal that walked up to our tee box at the tournament
So
yesterday?
can I tell this?
Yeah, she's got the red hat.
We're at the golf tournament, and like it's Canada themed, right? So it feels like Canada Day. Everyone's in red and white, Canada flag hats. You know, there was a whole team dressed as like beavers, it was just amazing vibes. And, you know, it kind of feels like we threw it back and had another Canada Day on the golf course. And then all of a sudden, way off in the distance, as this girl drives up in a cart, we see the hat, and we're like, oh, there it is. The red hat, the white writing, the four, the four words. And we're like, oh my gosh, is this a MAGA hat walking us to us right now? Are we going to, you know, and it's all good. Like I talked to people, and I saw an Asian guy with a MAGA hat at Greta the other day, and I talked to him. I was like, I have to talk to this guy. What is up with you? But anyway, so she's coming forward, and then as she gets close, we see her hat says, Canada is already great. And we just, the biggest smile on our faces, we had to get a photo with her. I'll try to find it, but yeah, great hat.
Yeah, it was really good. I thought we wanted to let Philip go. Like, I know he has brunch plans. His family's ready to go, so we cut him loose. But we did mention that big, beautiful bill, this Trump bill. It's, you know, in Canada, we might call it like an omnibus.
Huge.
It's a mega bill that'll have big implications, including tax changes, but that's hardly just it. And AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, absolutely unloads on the president and on this bill. The clip's about 2 minutes, longer than what we'd usually play, but you got to hear it from start to finish. And then I thought we could get into it on this 4th of July episode of Real Talk. Here's AOC.
President Trump had issued some statements throughout this process saying and urging, insisting that this bill does not cut Medicaid. He's also said some things, you know, he says he doesn't think I'm too much of a smart person. And I'll tell you one thing. It doesn't take a smart person to know if you're being lied to. All right. President Trump, you're either being lied to or you are lying to the American people. Because this bill represents, in the text of this bill, the largest and greatest loss of health care in American history. 17 million Americans will lose their health care on this bill, not undocumented people, not quote unquote the disgusting term illegal, but 17 million Americans will have their health care cut from this bill. On this point of tax on tips, as one of the only people in this body who has lived off of tips, I want to tell you a little bit about the scam of that text, a little bit of the fine print there. The cap on that is $25,000. While you're jacking up taxes on people who make less than $50,000 across the United States, while taking away their SNAP, while taking away their Medicaid, while kicking them off of the ACA and their health care extensions. So if you're at home and you're living off tips, you do the math. Is that worth it to you? Losing all your health care, not able to feed your babies, not being able to put a diaper on their bottom in exchange for what? This bill is a deal with the devil. It explodes our national debt. It militarizes our entire economy, and it strips away health care and basic dignity of the American people. For what? To give Elon Musk a tax break and billionaires the greedy taking of our nation. We cannot stand for it, and we will not support it. You should be ashamed.
So there's AOC dropping the hammer. This a bill that'll be signed the day that we're talking to you right now on the 4th of July as part of the president's July 4th celebration at the White House. This is a tight one as well. The vote on this, I think the difference in the vote was 4. It was 218 to 214. 2 Republicans voting with the Democrats on this. We'll see what the political costs might be for them. A $4.5 trillion tax break and spending cut element to this bill. And obviously, it's going to have huge implications, as you heard from AOC. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, this was interesting, broke the modern-day record. I thought this kind of flew under the radar, at least up here in Canada, for the longest House floor speech, using what they call his magic minute to speak for hours against the bill and just kind of drawing, they call it a filibuster, but just drawing out debate on the package. Set to unlock tax cuts, as you heard, and funding boost for national security, paid in large part by the biggest cut to the federal safety net in decades. The Trump calls it a phenomenal, the Trump administration calling it a phenomenal victory. That big,
of course,
beautiful bill.
I skimmed through it this morning, and I'm like, space launch fees. That looks cool. Gun silencer fees eliminated. Yeah. Cool. Tax break for whaling captains. Awesome. Yeah. Car buyers loan reduction. I was like, I wonder what that's doing as well. And
they're trying to kickstart confidence in American vehicles, right?
It's just, for me, I don't know. For fiscal conservatives in the States, I don't know how they can, even after this 6 months of trying this and trying that, I don't know how people can get behind Trump. Even with the ICE thing, I'm just like, as someone who knows the economy, living in the States, someone who's a fiscal conservative Republican, how can you support spending $1 trillion over a decade to get rid of 13 million illegals who've been living here, working here? Okay, I'm not talking about gang members and all this stuff. We know what the majority of illegals are doing in the States. They're working the jobs that Americans don't want to do.
They're keeping businesses in business.
100%. They're doing all the things that Americans don't want to wake up early in the morning or stay late up at night doing, cleaning offices, building things, working at the low minimum wage jobs, serving food and whatever it is, right? Yeah. And $1 trillion to get rid of these 13 million people over a decade. Or you could flip that and make $1.5 trillion over a decade by creating 200,000 jobs right off the bat in the first year. Like, we've seen the numbers. It's just... And if you want to close down the borders and not let anyone else in, fine. But it makes no sense to get rid of the people who are already there, already working, already paying taxes, already contributing to the economy.
Yeah, I thought Philip talking about the fact that there's like strawberries rotting in the fields because they don't have labor to pick those strawberries. I saw a bit of an asshole comment from Seventh Pilot. Don't think I didn't notice it in our live chat that says, he doesn't have slaves to work the farms. How sad. And I just think, like, number one, if you think, or if you're going to pretend like Mexican or immigrant labor is not, like you said, sustaining the agriculture industry
literally
in
propping
the United
it
States,
up.
in particular in California, you just don't know what's going on. That's just a fact. And also, it's going to impact Canadian businesses as well. There are a ton of ag operations, and we hear from a lot of them. We hear from them firsthand that bring in labor, temporary foreign workers, and many of them from Mexico. These are skilled, experienced laborers. Without whom these companies would not sustain themselves. And we're not talking about there's like some rich guy who doesn't have his labor force to mow the front lawn at his mansion. You're talking about companies. You're talking about big business that will not function without a workforce in an already competitive hiring environment. So, I mean, that's just like one angle out of many. And I just wanted to read this. I see that we've triggered somebody who's watching us live on X right now. This is Robin Roasting. Robin says, "You're promoting a mess like AOC. Got it. This show has gone full socialist."
We played a clip.
That's
Relax.
Right. We played a clip. We also played a clip from Donald Trump today, so I guess I was promoting him too, Robin.
And let's be honest, AOC is already on the campaign trail. Like, she's going to be involved in some form of the Democratic bid, whatever, when it goes up against Trump for his third term in a few years. She's going to be part of it, whether it's running for president herself, being vice president. She's going to be involved in the ticket. We can see it already, or at least running for the bid at the convention.
It'll be interesting. I think she's a formidable political force.
Well, when you've got extreme right, and she is, let's be honest, she is out there. She is loud. She is far left on some things, and she's more, just left on others. But what do you do to, fight hot water with cold water? You do the exact opposite, right?
Well, and I think, I personally feel, and I know that not all of our audience agrees with us. I've said this before. I told you, I love the drama in politics. Typically when you host a talk show, drama is good.
When it's over there,
right? But
you can just watch.
But I think that politics, in so many ways, as I said, that I think that Mark Carney, won the election because he presented himself as a reputable, steady influence, right? Yeah. I also think that politics needs personalities, and AOC is a big personality. So is Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm not saying that she's necessarily great for politics, but the personality that she brings sure is.
We said the same thing about Trump.
If there were no personalities in politics, then more people would disengage, right? I think you can make an argument that you need people that are compelling, that are gregarious, that are outgoing, that are outspoken, to be on the radar, to engage the general public. You, as an audience member of this show, you're in an elite top shelf of the population. If you looked at a graph, like a pie chart of people who could speak or understand politics fluently, it is a minute portion of the population, and I hate that. And we endeavor, as we grow our audience, to have more people able to understand and talk politics at a normal, real level, right? But an audience like this that understands politics, that's politically engaged, we've got a whole bunch of chat right now in our live chat, powered by Park Power, folks on the left, folks on the right, coming together every single day and interacting with each other. I think it's absolutely fantastic, but I don't think that stuff happens without personalities in politics. So regardless of whether or not AOC is the next president of the United States, and I don't think that she is, I still think she brings value. You've got to have people speaking truth to power.
I mean, even if you look over time, I know it's not the same now. Abraham Lincoln, his vocabulary being eloquent and fluent, and just his words and them being so powerful when you would read them in a paper or when he wrote them down, because is much different than today. But now personality is, I think, so much more important. You have to be on camera, on social media, in front of the media, answering questions, quick-witted. You have to drop bombs on your opponent. You have to immediately answer questions. You have to deflect facts and untruths at the same time. You know what I mean? You can't just go back like in Abe's day. You could just write a letter, take your time. It was now you have to be on all the time. So you have to be a personality.
Emily says, this isn't drama, Jespo. This is horror. Tracy says, and Tracy, I don't love your comment, but I love your comment because what you're implying makes me sick. But Tracy says it's cute the way you think that there will be another U.S. presidential election in your lifetime. Okay. Tracy alluding to the fact that the president
4th of July
could change the landscape to preserve his term in the White House for decades to come. We should probably take that a little more seriously. We'll take it more seriously when it happens. But hey, listen, this all plays out in so many ways, as we talked about. If you missed it was the 2nd of July, our exclusive with Pete Guthrie and Scott Sinclair in studio talking about reviving the PC party. We talked about Danielle Smith and right now the popularity that she's enjoying. The party's polling. She laid it out herself. I don't know if you still have that clip. I'm kind of asking you to do a deep dive on it. Remember Danielle Smith when she was talking about the police force launch, but she was asked about the launch of the PCs, and she basically rattles off, "We ready to rock?" So I'll just let her say it in her own words. Here's what Danielle Smith says when asked, and she's not wrong. Nothing she says is wrong. When asked about whether or not basically she's sweating the return of the progressive conservatives.
I go back to 2 instead of 1.
Well, as I mentioned, it's in elections law. It was my predecessor who passed that, saying that the name of the former legacy parties of the UCP could not be registered as new parties, and that is so that we do not have confusion for voters. And so we're going to raise that with the elections officials and remind them that that's what the law says, and we would expect that the law will be followed. What I would say is that We have always had multiple parties on the ballot. Even last time around, if you go and look at the number of parties that were on the ballot, I think there were 4 or 5 or 6 different conservative parties that were listed there. And I think our success demonstrated that people like the United Conservative Party. They like what we stand for. They like what we're doing. They want to vote for us. They've been voting. They've supported us in record numbers. We've had the highest attendance and highest revenue-generating leaders' dinners this year. We are out fundraising the opposition NDP, I think, by 3-1. So I feel like those are the measures that I am looking at, and we'll be prepared to make our case in the next election, no matter who ends up being on the ballot.
Yeah. So there you go. She's not wrong. They're out fundraising. They are the leaders' dinners have been absolutely packed. Her internal approval at the AGM is north of 90%. Her general polling approval is one of the most popular premiers in Canada. So is Danielle Smith sweating it right now? No. Is Donald Trump sweating it right now? Don't think so. But things can happen. Things can change, right? An Auditor General's report surfaces, or the RCMP investigation comes back and shows that there is, in fact, scandalous dealings or has been, right? Public opinion changes. You lose the support of your caucus. That can happen. That can happen to Donald Trump. That can happen to Danielle Smith. That can happen to Mark Carney. Getting big swipes in here, by the way, from Dubious in the chat, who says, it's funny, we come here every day to listen to 2 guys who thought that Mark Carney had no chance in like January, who can't see what's coming until it's absolutely here every time. Number one, absolutely untrue. Number one, nobody said that Mark Carney didn't have a chance. We quite rightfully said that Justin Trudeau would get his ass smoked in an election, and he would have. So there you go. Now, I did go on the record and essentially say that Pierre Poilievre was the next Prime Minister of Canada in the context of on the 21st, was it, of February?
Yeah,
when
before
Prime Minister
everything
Trudeau joined
changed.
us in studio and told us, I asked him directly in an exclusive in studio in an interview that no other TV or radio station had in the province of Alberta, by the way, Dubious. I asked him, are you leading the Liberals into the next election? Do you intend to stay on as Liberal leader during the next election? And he said yes. And we said, then Pierre Poilievre will be the next Prime Minister of Canada, and I stick to my guns.
Show me someone's opinion who knows way more than us in politics that didn't change from the time that,
knows.
Trudeau and Carney switched places. Also, we'd like to thank Dubious for his membership to our YouTube channel. And if you would like to become a member, please go to our homepage, hit join, and select the level of membership. Thank you, Dubious.
I made a note because we saw, before we get to the flamethrower here, we saw a question, I think it was from Aaron, that was in our live chat a couple of days ago. And we just appreciate everybody that supports the show. There's many ways to support the show. The easiest one is to do what you're doing right now, which is listen to it, watch it on YouTube. You can, of course, like the episode if you feel inclined. You can leave a review for our podcast, which is great. But there's other ways to level up, including YouTube channel memberships, which give you some perks on YouTube, as well as our Patreon. And you can check that out at ryanjespersen.com. Just go to the Connect link, and that's where you can find us on Patreon. So Erin had a very good question. She's trying to decide. She goes, well, should I be a Patreon supporter? She goes, we call them our Real Talk patrons. She goes, should I be a YouTube channel member? And so I thought it might be good for us to take like 30 seconds and just kind of clarify. So the YouTube membership gives you some specific perks. You can get like unique, you get a badge in the chat. You can like have unique little avatars, that kind of a thing. You also have access to our Real Talk community chat, which is on Discord if you're a YouTube channel member, which is great. The Patreon side of things is more like we usually do an annual exclusive merch drop. This past year it was Real Talk socks. We've done other cool stuff before. And then that's also kind of the Real Talk, we don't call it this, maybe we should start calling it the Real Talk Social Club, where we'll do things like our Real Talk VIP debate night watch party, which was at Arcadia Brewing Company. Bought everybody a couple of beers and had Friesen Brothers cater the whole thing and a chance to get together. So that's kind of more the social side of things. But we appreciate your support no matter what. Some of you may say, I don't have the means to make a monthly commitment to the show. 100% fine. We made a decision before we launched our first episode. What's this? $9.94 before we launched our first episode ever of the show, and we said people will never have to pay to access this show ever. And that's made possible by our incredible sponsors. You can check them out as well on the sponsors page. We encourage you to support them when you can. But for those of you that do look for different ways to support the show, that's a big way to do it. You can also, of course, send us emails. Like we said, the note we had from Karen talking about her Jasper rebuild, Wendy sending us photos from the golf course with the burned out golf ball. All of that stuff helps us better understand the audience, better understand what you care about, and better understand what's happening on the ground. These conversations happen, as I mentioned, with the support of partners like our friends at North Road Investment Council. Obviously, when it comes to your family, financial security, including, I'm sorry to say it, after you go, yeah, that's right, has got to be one of the number one things that can keep people awake at night, right? Wondering if you're on the right path with your investments. Well, that's where North Road Investment Council comes in, a steady hand and a studied voice for discerning families to guide you through wealth and investing. They know that successful saving can create unexpected challenges, and that's where Marshall and Carrie and their team of financial advisors come in. You can learn more about what they do, their unique approach to wealth management, to retirement planning, and more on their website, northroadic.com. You can also link to their YouTube channel where they've got some great insights in nice bite-sized videos. And I wanted to focus in particular on their digital risk advisory services. Nobody else does this in the space. They've got a team member specifically and solely dedicated to digital risk advice within the wealth management industry. You can take their digital risk quiz today on the website. That's northroadic.com. Learn where you could be vulnerable. This could save you a lot of money, short and long term, with North Road Investment Council at northroadic.com. And earlier in the show, we gave a shout out to some of the agencies, the nonprofits that we're really proud to support, and that includes UCAN Youth Services. You can read about them online at ucan.ca. I'm hoping that this reaches somebody right now that's, I don't know, maybe doing some estate planning, or maybe you've had some sort of a windfall. Maybe it's been a great year at work, and you're looking for a place to maybe invest some donation dollars. Please consider UCAN Youth Services. They're doing incredible work with vulnerable young people, helping them find paths into employment or education if it works. They've got wonderful partnerships with corporations, government agencies, the Edmonton Police Service, and they're really making a difference in the lives of young people. You can check them out online, as mentioned, at ucan.ca. We've got a really exciting announcement relating to UCAN, but it's their news to announce, not ours. We can't wait to tell you about it in a future episode. That's ucan.ca. Love the chats that are still going on here in a live chat powered by Park Power. People are still talking about mixing drinks, by the way. I guess it's a Friday. It's the 4th of July. That's
don't do it.
If you're over
30, don't do it.
Yeah, exactly. Dubious followed up, by the way, says,
walking it back with all the compliments now.
Yeah. You guys as hosts don't need to be right. You have experts who are typically are.
Jespo is a skilled interviewer. I take notes. Well, thank you, Dubious.
That was nice to say. That was nice to say. Listen, and obviously Dubious knows that we love them, and we're
watch
poking
his
fun,
stuff.
you guys.
Yeah.
I'm more inclined to read the shots that people take at us, like Robin roasting in Seventh Pilot.
We're people.
Than the compliments. We're people.
It hurts us sometimes, but you know what? Most of the time it doesn't because we're used to it. We're kind of Teflon at this point.
You don't do 20 years in big media without developing a thick skin. Every Friday, and this is another way that engaged Real Talkers really beef up the show, if you will. You see what I did there? They beef up the show with their hot takes. That's right. Everything you're about to hear is a real email to talk@ryanjespersen.com or a YouTube comment on one of our episodes. It's the Flamethrower, presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. So fun hanging out with them, the DQ team at the Glendale yesterday. This one from Chantal, who says, I was so pissed off at the Canada Day Parade in Airdrie, Alberta, to see a vehicle with the Alberta Prosperity Project in the parade. She says they had their windows open and I gave them a loud ass boo. What a shame to insert themselves into a nation's celebration that they don't even want to be a part of. That from Chantal. What are parade organizers doing, letting Alberta separatists into a Canada Day parade? Are you fucking kidding me? Wes says, Jespo, your interview with Pete Guthrie and Scott Sinclair, it's time for Pete Guthrie to go away. He says, come work for me for a week with your EV truck. repeat. Hopefully you can make it back to the city after work without charging it for an hour. And then after eating supper, your family's already asleep at home. And then you wake up again at 5 in the morning to make it work on time, hopefully without charging your truck, and then work and then repeat till the weekend and hope that your kids remember you. That's what rural people will have to do with EVs. I don't think Pete said anything about EVs, but Wes, will take your point. How about this from Les, who says, breaking news, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is in the hospital. This is not true, by the way. Don't worry, everybody. He says, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is in the hospital. She was stung by a bee on her nose, and her face is all swollen. Spokesperson Brian Jean said, the bee almost got away, but don't worry, I hit it with a shovel. That's from Les. How about this one from Patrick, who says, Jespo, good morning to the best talk show on planet Earth. Thank you very much, Pat. Says, with all the talk about separatism, independence, I wanted to share some stats that have come out of an important group with you. That's the 18 to 34 demographic. And Pat, you're right. Says, in fact, it could help everybody understand why Alberta's separatist movement hit a wall right off the bat, while Quebec's movement has a lot more potential to gain in popularity over the next decade or so. He says, you got to pay attention to what's happening in Quebec. He says, but Anglo media is not even making the effort. He's recommending that we check out more French news services. He says you can, of course, use the translating closed captioning to better understand it. He says, but we need to seek to understand what's happening in Quebec and the difference in young people there to better understand what could happen in Alberta. That from Patrick. What about this one from TSM, who has a comment on Alberta's new sheriffs, the new independent police force? TSM says, I think the RCMP should just leave contract policing in Alberta and spread those officers out throughout the rest of the country. In fact, just leave the province of Alberta or make them all focus on federal matters, working under the conditions that the Premier and her UCP goon show have created by constantly saying they're doing a poor job, we pay them too much, or at least we pay too much for them, and crime's out of control. It's got to be taxing on those officers. TSM says the RCMP should consider their officers' mental health and leave policing in the province of Alberta. It's no longer a workable relationship. She says by the end of 26 or the end of 2027 at the latest. And if the sheriffs don't have enough officers by then and public safety erodes even further, well, then that's too bad for Alberta. I guess you can figure it out. Maybe you can get Trump to send in the National Guard. TSM says the OPP in Quebec, yes, they have their own police, but they were established decades ago when the cost of policing was not where it is now. They didn't have cybercrime. They didn't have political crime. They didn't have sophisticated organized crime to deal with. The costs of those alone are billions of dollars to investigate, and Alberta has officially entered the fuck around and find out stage. That from TSM. How about this one from Blahsheep, who says, I was looking for a political party that would lower taxes, stand its ground against Ottawa, and bring in a provincial police force. Quebec, Ontario, Newfoundland have them. Why can't we? Alberta used to. I think Danielle Smith's been great, says Blahsheep. I have a few issues, but you'll never find a perfect politician. I think she's not right enough. Sometimes Blahsheep wants her to go a little further right. He says, but I will say if Jason Kenney was still leading the party, I would never vote for them in a million years. Blahsheep says the UCP will have to majorly screw up for me to not vote for them in the next election. The PC party, their views on Alberta independence shows that I don't think I can vote for them either. I would honestly rather have those MLAs stay as independent. I think we need more independence in Parliament and in the Alberta legislature. That from Blahsheep. And this one from Krista, who brings us home on this 4th of July. She says, oh, happy July 4th to our loud, lovable, slightly unstable neighbors to the south. We Canadians adore you, your movies, your music, your triple bacon flamethrowers the size of a hubcap. But let's be honest, our relationship's been a little strained since, Donald Trump tried to break up NATO on Twitter while mainlining Diet Coke. We're like the polite couple next door, quietly mowing our lawn while you're setting off 4th of July fireworks at 3 in the morning, hollering about fake news and witch hunts. Sure, we'll still come over for the barbecue, but we're keeping one eye on the door just in case your weird uncle with that red hat starts ranting about bleach injections again. Still, says Krista, in true Canadian fashion, we'll end on a hopeful note. We know deep down you're good people. You just need to sober up from your reality TV hangover. So cheers, America. Happy Independence Day. We'll keep the beer cold and the border mostly open. That's from Krista, who nails it on this episode of The Flamethrower, which is proudly presented by the DQs in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and Baseline Road. When you swing by for a Smarties Blizzard and a flamethrower this weekend, you make sure to let them know Real Talk sent ya. We'll be back at it next week. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Thanks for supporting the show. One love.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jespersen, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harmon Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjespersen.com.